Welcome to the Stellify Podcast, where I like to explore the material to the esoteric. Today is all esoteric. I'm going to introduce our guest for today. It's Sarah Adams. Now, if you don't know Sarah Adams, let me read her bio, and then I want you to enjoy this incredible conversation. If you're not in the mind of this esoteric, if you're more on the 3D material, this might be a little bit challenging for you, but stick with it. There's some really, really important messages of how to deal with everything that's going on in the world today. So let me just read this bio. Sarah is an intuitive healer and a multidimensional coach. She has the unique ability to facilitate healing for others by working with energies of the body. Additionally, healing can occur when there are clearing things like karmic blockages, ancestral trauma, current lifetime, past life trauma, energy blockages in the body and the aura, implants, black magic, entity attachments, possessions, and strong emotions such as fear, anger, and grief. She's developed relationships with angels, ETs, and other entities, and other elements also who offer the assistance in the healing. Many of her clients have been able to establish their own relationships with these entities with Sarah's help and guidance. While Sarah has an exceptional gift for healing, she's especially interested in teaching her clients on how to use her techniques so they can heal themselves. It's important to her that people are able to do this. In the spirit of the Chinese proverb, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. She believes in self-empowerment and understands that everyone has the ability to heal themselves if they have the understanding and the tools to do such. In her work with thousands of clients around the world, Sarah has found that the most profound healing occurs when her clients follow her exclusive detoxification and parasite cleanse program. Not only does this program heal the person on the physical level, but there is an undeniable and intense spiritual cleansing that happens simultaneously. Parasites attach to our bodies and have energetic links to the underworld, which affect how we think, our emotions, and what we crave. By clearing them from our bodies, we are able to raise the frequencies of our bodies and hold those higher frequencies. Additionally, detoxing of heavy metals and things like candida are also important in order for our bodies to hold on to the higher level of energies. So let's dig deep on all of those areas and what we can do to challenge the challenge that's coming to us. Are we creating it? And what can we do to solve it? Sarah Adams, everyone. Okay, welcome to the Stellify Podcast, and I say this all the time that I'm excited about the guests that I've got on, but today I'm really excited. I've been nervous and anxious and excited all day today because I finally get the opportunity to speak to Sarah Adams. Now, if it's all right with you, Sarah, can I just tell you a little story? Because this is going to hopefully set the mood on the podcast, if that's all right. So in 2011, 2012, I went through a divorce, and it brought a trauma, and through that trauma, a friend of mine who was a psychic, I was struggling at the time. Just to give you the background story, I was struggling at the time financially, me and my daughter, etc., etc. And he said to me, "You need to ask your angels for help, Aunt." And I remember looking at him going, "That's the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life." And that night, I asked out loud. My daughter went to bed and I asked for help out loud. And the following day, when I was driving to my parents' house, the clock on my dashboard was reading 111111, and in the center console of my car it said 1111. So I thought there was something wrong with my car, so I pulled over, switched the car off and turned it back on again. All these ones are still there, and I thought nothing of it, drove to my parents' house, and then when I got there, I sat on the phone as you do, and you're flicking through Facebook as you do, and this thing popped up and it said, "If you see 111, your angels are listening." Now, my life changed from there. That was a big defining moment for me, because I started being, for whatever reason, I started coming across the world in a different light. So I was being presented videos. If I was on YouTube, I was presented videos which told me more about the world than I previously knew. My perception of the world completely changed. I started seeing the corruption of the world. 9/11 became a prominent thing for me, and because of that journey, that awakening that I was going through, I came across Max Spears. And through Max Spears, obviously, I've come across yourself. So I just find it fascinating. I wanted to acknowledge that because I find it fascinating how a journey, because there's no time is an illusion, isn't it? So for whatever reason, I found myself now the opportunity of chatting to you about a number of the topics that I've been going down the rabbit holes with for the past 10 years, 12 years even. And I just think it's amazing. So 11/11, I mean, to you, what does that mean?
It's a gateway, it's a portal, it's a frequency upgrade.
Okay.
So we have the High Priestess in the tarot deck, and she sits between the two pillars which create the 11. The High Priestess represents the seen and the unseen. And it's really about us going through that unseen to the physical eyes of many portal, that energetic portal. So when I see 11/11 or even 11, I'm aware that I'm doing a frequency shift and I'm going through a portal.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And I remember the reason I came across you guys at the time is because I started doing a bit of research on what 11/11 was, and I came across, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, there's a guy called Rick Clay, and he passed away shortly after a radio presentation, which he started talking about ley lines, about the Olympic ground, the setup that they were doing the Olympics in England at the time, in London, and he started talking about 9/11 and things like that. And my world completely turned upside down. So I've got a complete contrast of my perception of life, if you like. So it really took me on that. And obviously coming across Max, I'd never heard of super soldiers, for one. That was, and I don't know, the people that watch my channel, I don't know if some of these people will be ready for where I would like to go with this conversation, really. Because I've been talking about political corruption, you know, the past 4 years, for example, since, you know, the pandemic or whatever happened in 2020. So all those things have tangible effects on people's daily lives through political push. But my understanding is, and, you know, tell me if I'm wrong here, Sarah, but there's much more to this than just a human being making difficult decisions which affect human beings. Am I right there?
This is true. And earlier I was actually talking to the demiurge. I don't know if you know who the demiurge is. Well, it's a consciousness. And I was speaking to this consciousness, and this consciousness told me that people's actions to themselves and others, basically, that are negative, attract this energy into their beings and into their lives, that keep them in this loop until they decide to make better decisions that are karmically, what I call positively charged karmic, on a karmic level. So the demiurge was telling me this earlier, and you know, it told me, it said you passed a lot of tests, and that's why you are very blessed, and that's why you know, you're allowed to see the truth of everything. And it said that it throws these tests our way, whether it's fear, whether it's pain, whether it's suffering, even loss. And we need to, as we keep focusing on the light, we're able to win the game and ascend above the demiurge. So it's here, you know, sure, there are demonic entities that exist and many different levels. And I've been to the underworld or hell itself, and I've spoken about this. I've been very open about it. And there's also the demiurge that exists, and these negative entities are part of its, you might say like it's the queen or the king. The king is very masculine energy, like, you know, kind of like a hive, except it's a male version of it. It's very masculine. And the demonic entities, there's different levels. There's jinn, there's skinwalkers, there's, I can count out, you know, I think a thing that people don't know about me is that I clear negative entities. So that's something that I do. I've done a lot of it. I've been to people's houses to clear negative entities, worked on them one-on-one to clear negative entities. It's been rapid since the whole virus situation. But to go back to your question, by the way, yes, this force and its worker bees obviously are dark. They're obviously evil, but this goes way further back than that. We have choice. When we make bad choices, then we ask, we summon these things into our lives, and we will have a lot of disappointment, dismay. Our lives will be in loops. We'll have lack of this, lack of that, until we actually say, hey, I'm going to change. I'm going to shift myself. I'm going to take self-responsibility. And as we do so, as we take care of our physical body, which is the divine temple, as we start to do better things for ourselves, for others, for the world, we gather light energy. Light energy is then, it comes into us, it summons into us, and then we start to ascend. And as we ascend out of that abyss. And a lot of people on the planet are in that abyss, but they also have to take self-responsibility. We are choosing, not me, but humanity is choosing leaders that are very service to self, leaders that are compromised. The moment that they all said no is the moment that those leaders would have no power, is the moment that force behind those leaders would back off. And we have that choice. I'm trying to teach that choice to people because I think a lot of people like being victims. And it's important that we stop being victims. And it's important that we also realize that we need to do things, shifts in our lives to summon in the light energy and to transmute that dense dark energy. And to go back, I remember where this force comes from, the first creation that was ever created. So you had the realm, first of all, there was the realm of energy, and energy wanted to experience. So it became spirits, and it became spirit, and then it became spirits. And then from spirits, it became things like angels, the fairies, the different beings. And then it decided that it wanted to have more of a 3D experience. So a certain group of those spirits started to they created the first 3D creation and bodies they could go into and experience. Because they hadn't been in such a low state of matter, what happened, they fell from their divine connection and got stuck in bodies, and that whole creation kind of just collapsed on itself, and it was quarantined by the light spirits until they could figure out how to fix it. And down there, when it was quarantined, that's what became hell. That's where hell came from.
So this is quite it's quite a Gnostic story, that, in a way, as well, isn't it? It's I think
it's my memory.
This is your memory. So this is how you. I think it's fascinating because I've been going through the Gnostic thing itself, and it just reflects very much on the Sophia story. Your memory is that Sophia story, then, where there is a fall, and then the demiurge is created.
Yes, frequency, fall from disconnect from the divine energies, which is why we have sickness, suffering. Why we have so much chaos and anger on the planet when it comes to people and them being lost is because there's that disconnect. And I think everyone looks back at the fall, but a lot of people are falling nowadays. I could see, I walk around, I was out and about earlier, and I could just feel people. They're so disconnected from the divine, and that's why the world is the way it is. But we have that first fall that was, of course, quarantined, and then there were other creations, and that kept finding a way into the newer creations. And the last creation it found its way into is when I was on Mars. I would travel between the planets. So, we have this whole myth of, quote, Atlantis. So, first of all, there's no such thing as Egypt. Egypt was part of Atlantis.
Okay.
Yes, so were the Easter Islands, so were the Stonehenge. They were all part of this ancient civilization. And Atlantis wasn't even the name for it. These are like modern day names. But it was spanned among the planets. It was Venus. There's temples on Venus, the temple of the heart connected to the heart chakra. Each planet is connected to each chakra. So we also have the temple of time on Saturn, which is a whole thing we could get into why they use Saturn, and they want you to think Saturn's evil because you'll avoid it and you'll avoid creating your own reality, because that's why they do the satanic rituals, is to tune Saturn, because Saturn just reflects and creates reality. The rings create reality. There's a temple of time and reality on Saturn, by the way. There were the Time Lords on Saturn. Each planet is connected to each chakra system. And so there was that first creation that was quarantined. And then we have we had the new creation, the newest creation, right? And well, actually the creation pre this creation. So Mars, everything was inhabited. Again, Venus, they were all inhabited, the planets, and there was interdimensional travel. There was all of that happening. And basically, they decided that they were going to be able to, the beings were like, oh, we're going to open the portal and we're going to master it. We're going to be able to master that force that's mutated, right? So then we can bring our long lost kin back to the light. Well, the opposite happened. They opened that portal and it took them over, including the brothers Enki and Enlil. See, nobody knows this, but those are two brothers. So they'd also be called Lucifer and Adam. And there's a couple different names for them. Set and Osiris, aka Horus, too, took the two brothers over. And actually, they were just trying to absorb that force and contain it when they realized it started to come through and that they weren't able to transmute it. So they were trying to contain it. Well, this force was like almost like a black magic spell. It started to spread over the planets and it made it destroyed entire planets within a day. The life on planets, it was just so hungry. It's a very hungry force because it's so disconnected from the light of the divine. It came through, and Earth being the newest planet that was created in the solar system, the Noah's Ark is actually the whole entire Earth because it had DNA from every other planet. The whales, all of our fish, they all aquatic life comes from Neptune. So Neptune, there were the mermaids and mermen. So you have, and then of course we have the red dirt, like when I was in Sedona, comes from Mars. And then you have things like strawberries and that strawberries, cherries, very what I call, because there's also yin and yang plants and trees. Those came from Venus. So this was the arc of plants and beings that we call animals from every other planet put on this little new arc. And when that happened, well, basically they froze. The beings then all came to here, to this planet, and they left the planets. Some of them escaped. Some of us went to the higher realms. I went into the higher realms for a while until we could figure out how to get this force, how to deal with it. And I remember it so vividly. And so then basically they used their powers to freeze. That's where we have the Arctic. It was a portal directly to Mars. They wanted to freeze that, and all of the bacteria that and the parasite stuff, all of that, the parasites, bacteria, death, disease is all manifestation of that force, by the way. What was like frozen in the ice, because they froze the force coming through, and it manifests via so they shut that portal by using the element of water and freezing it. And it's very interesting because I was telling a friend years ago about my memories, and he sent me the Green Lantern, and in the Green Lantern there's the one person who gets possessed and they look at his blood and it's full of parasites and bacteria. That's the physical manifestation. And so to come to the now, yes, there is this dark force. It destroyed other planets. And there's a lot of people who are angry right now. They want to point fingers. And I think there's a lot of self-responsibility here of, hey, yeah, there's this dark force, but I've spoken to many of those spirits. I've spoken to these beings, and to go back with those two brothers are caught this force uses their abilities and caught in the reincarnation. Enki and Enlil are actually walking around. They have multiple bodies.
Right. Okay.
And it's literally like in their consciousness using them. And so Max was like one of the brothers. He was one of the bodies. And this other person that I knew at the time who looked similar to Max, like Max's brother, they used to wear each other's t-shirts. He was the first guy I dated before Max that I lost my word. They look like brothers. He was the consciousness of the other brother.
Wow.
And then when they died, they said they were going to come back and they did. So I know them, and they're working at, I have those two consciousnesses because I know them from a long time ago. They're working, like I said, they have multiple bodies. I was shown that, like one of the brothers, his body is like, one of his bodies is like Ryan Gosling, Brad Pitt. It's the whole, they have different bodies and multiple bodies, the brothers.
Okay.
So I'm working with them right now. Right before Max was going to go into heart, because like I got him, I'm obviously very spiritual. I'm from the angelic realms, and I am the angel of love. Before I took ET bodies, by the way, because I've taken, like, I'm a traveler. I've traveled realms and galaxies, and obviously remember heaven. Sometimes I go to heaven, like I still go to heaven. This body's laying here, and I go to heaven. A seraphim. So I have multiple wings, and I'm called the angel of love. That's what they call me there. And in the future, I'm going to have other bodies. I like the exploration. It's just, we'd be bored if we constantly were just in nothing, just energy. We'd be, all this is created as a beautiful kind of like playground, and then those spirits got lost, So to go back, so yeah, I'm interacting with the brothers, and right now in specific bodies. And right before Max passed away, he's like, I make the decision to go into the heart chakra, because that'd been my separation from him. I'm like, you are, because he's mischievous. The one brother's very mischievous, by the way. I'm like, you are doing this, and I'm like, I'm not okay with that. And I remember you from the higher realms, and obviously you remembered me too. I'm not going to deal with you being caught into the lower karmic cycles of destroying yourself, So that's why I took my space, and he was going to, but that force didn't want him to. So it completely worked through people around him. And it also, worked to, because it needed his consciousness, because these are creator being consciousnesses. It can't create. So it has to hack into us. It has to hack into them. So it's hacked into them. And so it was like, I'm destroying this body before you can actually come in entirely and help disconnect it. So whenever I remember him and the other person, this other person that is the brother that knew, they left a card saying that they would come back, both of them together. And so they have, and I'm working with their consciousness to help it awaken, because they're very powerful. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now. But to go back, we've been having these conversations about this force, because they're highly aware of it. And we can't point fingers. Those spirits that fell from the light long time ago that are hungry, if you take any person and they're cut off from love, and they're cut off and they're starving, they're going to be very savage. And we need to understand that instead of pointing fingers, we need to basically summon the light, which is the highest frequency of love of the divine, into our beings, and then also channel it to that consciousness in those spirits, because I've spoken to those spirits and they are suffering every second. So why want them to suffer even more? And they need us. They need humanity to wake up, because I saw we're in the midworld. We're in the middle, and then there's the underworld, and we need to send light so that we can transmute all of that. And originally, there was, and then we're going to have our 1,000 years of peace. We're going to have our golden age that's going to happen. And hey, if us as spirits decide that we are going to experience disconnect again, so be it. But right now, there is this time that's come for us to transmute this and to step into our divine power, and to stop pointing fingers, and to also help those spirits long ago that fell from the light and got lost from the light. and really go to the ultimate truth that can save, this planet and save everyone. And that is love.
Yeah.
Instead of pointing
Yeah.
fingers. Because you can point like fingers all you want. It's not going to, I think people, instead of going like that, need to go like this. What more can I do?
I agree totally. I think there's our programming makes us look outside all the time. Everything, the education, the big pharma, the politicians, everyone's looking for a savior. Nobody.
Savior right here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're kind of programmed to look outward all the time. When we need to start looking at ourselves, there's a lot of shadows that we need to put light towards, and bring those shadows up, and with that we can work through our own situations. I mean, a lot of people who may be watching this and maybe have never come across you, Sarah, might have just had their heads blown in the first 15 minutes there of going, what is all this about? But I mean, the Aunt Critchley from 2011 before would have been going, what's all this all about? But through my journey over the past 12 years, I've come to understand more, realize more, have more awareness of myself, have a more awareness of the realm that we're in. So I challenge people really that are watching this to have an open mind and an open heart really on what Sarah is saying, because this reality that we're in isn't based just on the five senses that you are trapped within. That's how I feel. I don't know about you, Sarah, but I think most people are trapped in the programs and within the five senses.
I think they're also, I think it's okay to share different views, but I think that they're actually trapped in the reptilian cortex of the brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people's senses are actually shut down from what I've noticed. It's very interesting. A lot of people's senses are shut down or numbed out, so they're not being able to connect to each other. And of course we have far more than five senses, by the way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. And I think people are also in a sort of a lot of people are in what I call the reptilian cortex of the brain, which is the addictive part of the brain. So they're addicted to sugar, their meds, drugs, porn. There's a whole list.
Yeah.
And because Jesus has the crown, because the crown represents ascending out of the reptilian cortex of the brain into the higher parts of the brain. So I always channeling blue and different colors and doing swirls on the top of my brain to light up my crown chakra. And the addictive part of the brain, or the reptilian cortex, is also the mark of the beast. It says they'll be in their foreheads. That's the mark of the beast. And I know that sounds very intense. And I'm not Christian. I'm not religious. And the Bible comes from way more ancient writings and goes all the way back to ancient Egypt, which, like I said, is not even the name. It's part of Atlantis. And some ancient civilization a long time ago that was in sync and in flow with the spirit. Which spirit was held, spirit, we listened to the spirit instead of listening to the 3D world. So we listened to spirit, and then we built the system according to the spirit, of what the spirit directed us, our spirits directed us. But to go back, it's also the body is such a puzzle, and people don't know how to put the puzzle together. It's there's a whole instruction manual in ancient times that when I incarnated here, when I came into this body, that I brought with me energetically. So I know how it works. I know how to regenerate it. I know how to work with it. I know how to heal it. But that manual was lost. So I would say this. When I work with clients, right, I'm it's their bodies. They don't know anything about their bodies. And it's giving a McLaren to a child, I drove a McLaren a couple of years back, and it's giving a McLaren to a child out. McLaren's this
I totally understand that.
Yeah. And so it's the soul, it does not understand how the body, well, the person doesn't understand how their body works, and then they'll understand how the soul works in unison with the body. So they're so lost on this, and a lot of the knowledge was, lost. It was definitely lost. And a lot of my work now is to bring back, okay, so you're having a specific dreams. Those have meanings. It's not just something random like you think it is. And it's funny because the system out there, the 3D system, will tell you, oh, it's random, or it'll tell you this or that. But this, you got to not focus on that. You got to focus on your soul and on the inner, and not care what people think, not care what people say, not care what the 3D world tells you. Because if you do, you're going to get caught in its web, and it's a pretty intense web. And so, yeah, a lot of my work is to bring that knowledge back to, because people also don't understand, like, if they're feeling angry, it's because their liver's off. And they need to clear it emotionally. So I do organ whispering, where we talk to the liver and we clear it. And if they're fearful, their kidneys are off. And if their nervous system is off, it's most likely because they have poisons, toxins in their body. Nobody understands this. They just take meds to try to bandage it all up. They'll understand pain is actually just the body saying, I need a detox, or I have, an emotional blockage or energetic blockage. No. So a lot of our pharmaceutical system is really working against our spirits and our bodies. It's just like bandaging. And then eventually those, what I call like dark magic pills, when their dense energy is trying to hold your system back. When it explodes, that's when you get cancer, you get death, you get heart attacks, when it can't no more, because there's so much energy in your organs that is dense, so much energy in your brain that's dense, and all that wants is blocked in there, and it keeps building up, boom, and that's what happens is when people eventually die, And yeah, there's a lot to this, but to go back, I'd say it's the reptilian cortex of the brain. If you get out of there, and you have to do some training to get out of there. Once you get out of there, you'll have lots of senses. You'll have telepathy. You'll have, I have like major senses that have turned on. And I'm like, oh, okay. I said the reptilian cortex. The reptilian cortex was given to you too, so you can have choice between dark and light.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear porn of like, oh, that was put in prison. There's, your soul is divine. It's part of God's light. It can't be held in any prison, no matter what genetics were done here or there, no matter what. No matter what implants or dark, and nothing is as powerful as our souls, which are God, literally God. So a lot of that is just like, if you believe it, you're gonna be in fear. If you're fearful, you're gonna be caught in a lower vibrational prison. So really, it's just a test. It's like, are you gonna, because I read some things, it's like, oh, all these genetics are created to, cause like you to be in this. So even if they were, this doesn't really matter in the end, because what just really matters is you step into your power. It doesn't matter. All those things don't matter. It's like, there's so many conspiracies out there and there's so many that are true, but none of those matter in the end if you are not doing your sacred work and understanding your divinity and stepping into your divinity. Because what is knowing that there's an underground base across the world? What does that do for your soul? What does that do for you? It really doesn't, but it makes you more fearful that one day you might. So maybe the test for you is that it's your medicine in a way. These conspiracies are your medicine. Are you going to step into paranoia, chaos, or are you going to be like, face those things? Because all of this stuff is to bring up our shadow of the things that we need to heal. It's our medicine. And the more that we heal, as we work together, as we heal, so we take self-responsibility, as we bring up our frequency, that affects the frequency of the consciousness on our planet, that affects the frequency of our planet. And what's going to happen is we're going to be able to free those beings from that underground base, because the frequency of the planet's going to go high enough. And then of course they're also eternal beings, so they can heal too. So and there's really no death, no destruction, none of that. It's just kind of like a grand play. And I think once you come to that conclusion, because you've done a lot of inner work, you realize that, yeah, there are dark entities behind the curtains, and they are running the world. But guess what? It's kind of like, what's the movie? The Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
remember when Toto pulls down the curtain?
Yeah, exactly.
There's this elderly man, and he's like the one who's like, that force, it has no power compared to the divine power that's within us. It's just illusion. Yeah. It's magic. It's dark magic. So as you start believing it, and you start being like, I'm going to take care of this body that's my temple.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go out, and I'm not going to step on that little snail. I'm going to care about creatures both great and small.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend a day where I get my friends to pick up trash off the side of the road and help out the environment. I'm going to go to a local charity. I am going to take care of my body, because my body is my temple, and I'm going to work out. I'm going to make it a happy place. I'm going to do things that make myself happy, to do things that help create a better environment for myself in the world. That's where real change comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. Starting with self, and then spreading that love. Everything has to come from love.
It has. And until you take care of your mind, body, and soul, because I think a lot of I talk about the New Age community, and it is an illusion, and it's another, like I said, another trap, another dark medicine, and I had to wade through it and get through it. And there's even religion, it's another, but they're tests. We go through them sometimes, and sometimes we don't, according to what our consciousness needs to grow and evolve. Mm-hmm. And at the end, we're refined. We're like gold in that fire, refined, till we keep focusing on the light of our soul and the light of God, and we say to it, the world tells us all these different things. People around us tell us all these different things. The World Wide Web tells us all these different things. There's a lot of, things out there, and there's a lot of, we have political leaders, we have religious leaders, we have all these New Age leaders, we have, but what do you want, God? The one who sits here inside of this body. What is your path for me? Bestow upon me your ancient knowledge, because you obviously are infinite, and you are multi-dimensional and multifaceted, and you are eternal. So you can see everything, and you know everything. Guide me. I'm not going to listen. I'm not a pleaser of what is outside of myself. I prefer to please God above all. And God is this infinite energy that flows through everyone. And that is the greatest conspiracy. The greatest conspiracy is not where there's an underground base or ET contact or whatever. It's already happened. So the whole another subject in itself.
Yeah,
the
definitely.
Conspiracy is man has yet to uncover the greatest discovery, and the greatest discovery is that within his chest it's this orb of light, and that orb of light is the divine, and it's the solution to all of his problems and to all of his questions and to his being, because he was created in the image of God.
A couple of years ago, Sarah, I fell ill. I fell quite poorly, and I had a guy that rang me out of the blue. He'd come. I had a pub during the pandemic, and I stood up against the nonsense. I refused to close, and this, that, and the other. But after it, I was exhausted, and I felt quite poorly. And a guy phoned me out of the blue, and he said to me, the first words he said to me was, "You need to remember who you are." And this is the thing. So we are now, the human race, I think, is in a state of remembrance. Are we going to remember who we truly are and where we're truly from? You know, because this body is an experience, isn't it? There's so much more going on, as you've just explained, and we are so much more. Can I just ask you though? You mentioned reincarnation a few times, and I know you've got very strong memories of many lives, because I've listened to a number of your interviews throughout the years. Now I've had a past life regression. I think I had 3 lives that come up, and I remember they were almost like vivid dreams when I was doing it. Is it when you remember? Is it very, very strong? Because you've got so many. You're going back millions of years from my understanding. How does that work for you?
I remember when I was in this body, when it was, I guess you would say, like child age, because I walked in and out of this body for a while too. And then there's a part of me that doesn't live in time. There's the other side of where time doesn't exist. And I remembered from a small age about Mars and the planets. And then when Max died, because I nearly died. And I remember I was laying there. I'm like, okay, this body's going to pass away. And Max and me were talking about his other bodies and other bodies I could go into. Our souls were talking together. And I remember like having this experience where every single lifetime flashed before me, and it was so many. It was like endless. I was like, oh, that's where I know this person from. Okay. Oh, okay. That's where I know you from. Like, so many. It was like, okay, right before this body was going to pass, it was flashed like boom, boom, boom. And it was not like, I wasn't scared. I'm like, okay, I actually really like this body because I've always come in as a girl because I'm like the feminine essence of the divine. So I'm like, but I really like this body. I don't want to give this one up. I like this one. Max too. He's like, I really like that body that was in. He's like, oh, I didn't really want to lose it. I'm like, I know. Like, it was a nice body. I'm so funny. We were talking about this, and he's like, I need to find. He goes, but here's my other bodies. He's like, da-da-da. Like, we were talking about that. And so, yeah, he was like, he was ready for me to go. And so was that other being. They were like, okay, you're going to move out this body. We're going to go to these other bodies. And then boom, we can rejoin. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. But I was like, I'm going to try and establish this body, guys, because I really like it. And you can meet up with me in the future. Yeah, that's what happened. And it's like, oh no, I'm not afraid to die. To me, it's just like putting on this little cute, outfit I have on. It's like, oh, I'm going to take off this body. At some point, it's going to get, older. And that's going to be a beautiful experience. And then I'm going to be a cute little grandma, like teaching the young generation all of this ancient knowledge. And they're going to pass it down. Oh, I guess it's an experience. And then I'm not afraid. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm going to move in to the next life and be a baby again. And then and then I can go to the higher realms and hang out there for a while. And that'll be fun. Or the fairy realms and hang out there. So, yeah.
I've got a question on this. One of the questions I have is, it's almost like it's the game that we're in. And I feel in a way it is a bit of a game.
Yeah, it's a grand play.
It's a grand play. So I have sometimes a feeling that it's not a level playing ground, because when we reincarnate, we forget everything. We have our memories completely wiped.
Yeah, but you're divine and powerful in the end. So of course you're going to give yourself the hardest game to overcome, because otherwise it would be fun.
That's true. I can't argue with that.
If you're the most powerful being that there is, and being's even the wrong word for it, because I know how people like to point out, like, Sarah said this or that. Yeah, Sarah did sometimes, and she's not the greatest at putting this knowledge in physical human words.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you are, I don't compete with other people. To me, that's just like very, it's just very primitive, right? But I like competing with myself. So I'm like, hey, how many times can you work out this week, Sarah? What new levels and goals can you achieve?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're God and you are like, oh, I want a hard game because I get bored sometimes, you're going to put yourself in the most intense game. Of course, you know you're going to get out because you're God. God never can die.
Yeah.
Like, maybe the little uniform, maybe the little chess pieces you put yourself into playing the game can like, but you're God. So it's like, if you die this moment,
Sarah,
you probably, if you die this moment, guess what? You're just going to be in another body, and then you're going to see the same thing I did, and then you're going to be like, whoa, okay. Then you're going to be like, oh, I just want to forget some so that I can have it become boring. Like at some point in the, I'm going to disperse all of the energy of my consciousness so I can start over new again. So nothing is new under the sun. But then, when you do that, you can come back from, and then you have to regrow yourself. And so I forget who I am, because that's such a beautiful experience. You don't want to know everything. If you know everything already, I know so much. If you know everything, then it gets boring. And then they'll say you're not going to, nothing's going to be exciting. Nothing's going to be.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that, me personally.
Yeah, nothing's going to feel good anymore. It's just like, oh, I've already had that. You're going to not want to be alive. You're not going to want to be.
Some people would argue that, they have such a terribly suffering existence, though, that why would they choose that as well, and it's hard to kind of fathom, really, if a child is born and then some horrific incident takes that child's life, then they've not had a choice.
And that's those two forces. So that's that demiurge force. And I think I was having this conversation with one of my coaches yesterday, and I told her how in the end, we are going to be requested to forgive everyone, even from the most terrible murderer to, we're going to be requested to forgive everyone. There can be no, so that part of God that was disconnected from himself, because that's what it is going to reconnect.
Yeah.
But if we keep pointing fingers and yeah, sure, like I said, it went crazy. It like lost itself because it was disconnected from the light. But it was a part of God, nevertheless. And so when it reconnects, God is God, and God is all forgiven, and God understood. Well, God knows that part of itself was suffering, so it's going to welcome it and help it heal and help it return to the frequency of love. So that child, what's happening to that small child, is that part of God that's disconnected, that's hungry, that's savage, that's predatorial, going after the light of God in that child. And so in the end, at some point, we are going to have to channel love into that part of God that's disconnected, understanding that we are also God. And then that's when there will be the peace and new earth, and because that part of God has reconnected.
That makes sense in terms of that we live in a very frequential and vibrational realm, don't we? So by the material, the 3D is a low dense vibration, hence the quantum mechanics now, scientists are even able to explain that a bit more now, so there's more understanding. We must raise our vibration, which hence would raise the vibration of the planet, and we are being tested the human race is being tested magnificently at the moment, isn't it? There's a
Yeah,
lot
but
there's a lot going on.
we asked for those tests on some level, and that's where that great power, self-responsibility comes in. I think we're so programmed in society to be the victims of everything around us and everyone. And it's until we're like, no, sure, hey, this person did something to me. Tough love is a thing. Okay, stop. Boom. I will not allow you to do that to me.
Yeah.
Tough love. And so, but basically, I'm not the victim. In fact, I'm powerful for saying you are not allowed to do that to me, and I will have a voice to tell you no. Yeah. So, and I think that needs to happen to a lot of the abuse on the planet that's been kept in the shadows. And then we can be like, okay, this needs to be dealt with in this way. There needs to be positive change. But yeah, we are not victims. We're powerful beings. And I think that basically we're like that gold in the fire. It keeps being in the furnace. It keeps being put in through that heat until we're purified. And I can tell you, I've had 1,000 deaths in this lifetime and 1,000 risings like the phoenix. So constantly being refined. And I wouldn't have this great knowledge, and I wouldn't have come to this state of inner peace within myself, and inner peace knowing that even though the world is in such a chaotic place right now, that everything's going to be okay and everything's in divine alignment, and that the piece of the part of God that was in the darkness will be reconnected, and love will heal it, and that will bring unity to our planet. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't went through that furnace many of the times.
It's so true what you're saying. My experience of the traumas that I've experienced have been my biggest teachers. I've been able to do some shadow work myself. When I fell ill those 2 years ago, I spent a good 6 to 8 months not on my own because I've got a family, but going out into nature on my own and looking at myself and looking at my past and looking at my shadows and be taking away that victim mentality that I had through my marriage, for example, my previous marriage or anything else, and recognizing actually these were all big lessons for me to help me grow and evolve.
Yes.
And I've got gratitude for all of those traumas. And I've been lucky that the traumas, they've knocked me on the floor a few times, don't get me wrong, and they've knocked me to the floor to the point where I've had dark thoughts as well. But now looking back, I'm grateful for them because I've evolved and I've grown stronger. And I think we're on a path of wisdom. This is the thing. We have to become wise. There's so much to this experience to learn, and it is a beautiful path if you can let go.
Yeah, it's really, you know what? There's a good exercise to do with this, and I love doing it. I call it give it to God. Really, when I say God, I'm not saying the God of any religion. I'm saying the divine. I do. I'm like, here you go. I give this to you. I give this to you. I give this to you, God. I know that you know best. Here you go. Take this and do what you need to do. It's great when you let go and you say, okay, hey, sure, I have family that I really love, but they're so lost. I give that to you, God. I come from a place of non-attachment, I come from a place of flow, even in relationships with it's like, okay, that's not for me, that's not for me, that's for me, that's for me. God, you know best.
I love that.
It's such a beautiful, and then it's so beautiful, the flow of that. I don't know how people walk around with such a heavy weight on them because they don't give it to God. And so that's one of my exercises that I do. And as soon as I get off this podcast, I'm going to go and I'm going to mediate with the divine. And I'm like, okay, God, I have this mainstream TV series coming up, and help me bring the best knowledge that I can. I just filmed a documentary with Steve Harvey's family a week ago.
Lovely.
Yeah, and
He's a
it's like,
lovely soul.
yeah, and his son's amazing, and his son's wife. They're some of my best friends and soul family, and it's like, and I'm like, okay, thank you, God. Thank you for giving me these platforms. You know, thank you for giving me amazing soul family that are so supportive. Thank you for blessing me all the time. And how can I be your voice for those still lost in that dark forest, those who are still afraid, those who still don't know that they're divine, those who still don't know that they're the most powerful beings in the universes and multiverses, because they are you embodied. How can I? And just recently I was in yoga. I think it was like maybe 3 weeks ago. Don't quote me on time because I'm really bad at time. Like I said, I have a lovely group of 5 people who work with me that help me with time, because it's like, oh,
Time's
they have to keep me
irrelevant
on
anyway.
track. Yeah, I when I go into the other realms, there's no time. So
Yeah, it's an illusion, isn't it?
But to continue on, I was in yoga and I was doing some yin yoga, and there was this dark forest. I was out of the forest and I was like at the edge, and there's the light and there's light, and I'm like, I'm in the light, like. And then Buddha appears to me, and Buddha's like talking to me. And Buddha's like, this is the journey I went through, and this is the journey that, you know, other beings who came to the planet went through. And this is the journey. And I could feel these souls that I loved, and I'm like, oh, they're still in the dark forest. Buddha's like, you have done your path, but you can go back in and help them out. So I remember just projecting back and going back into the dark forest. And I was like, hold my hand on this journey. You're going to get through here too, just like me. And you're going to find the other side of where there's just like so much happiness, where everything is in flow, where you feel good within yourself, where you literally, it's heaven on earth, you know, because I went to Belinda Carlisle's, her performance of Heaven is a Place on Earth. It's like one of my favorite songs, because it just reminds me, every time I go somewhere, there's a song, because God talks to us all different ways. Like, so there's songs that say different things. And that's one of the songs of like, okay, heaven is a place within, and when we cultivate within ourselves, and we feel in a heavenly place within, that's when, you know, within projects on without. So we're going to create the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden starts in here. Heaven on earth starts in here. And then that projects outwards to the outwards world, outside world. And so I'm like, okay, everyone needs to go through the dark forest. And then I went back to Jesus in the desert. And then also like Moses with the Israelites in the desert. And sometimes it's desert or dark forest, but on the other side of that is, and it's a spiritual journey. It's not a physical journey like everyone thinks. It's a spiritual journey within yourself, because that desert, that forest is depression, fear, chaos, anxiety, you know, lack of self-love, feeling unloved.
Yes.
And then the other side is when you get to the other side, because you keep focusing on that light, the light of the soul within you, and you're like, nope, I am love. I passed that test, because instead of listening, I am love, and I am loved. I am. And once you get to the other side, it's such a beautiful place. And it's like, okay, right now a lot of people are in the dark forest, but they will get to the other side, because they are divine beings, and everything's going to be okay. And we're all God. We're not. This body might pass away, but we're all okay then. So what is there to fear? So instead of listening to your political leaders, instead of listening to your religious leaders, just go out and, you know, do things that make yourself happy. Turn off the news, turn off all the chaos, go live your life, do some things that make you happy, do some crafts, do some hobbies, find a hobby, go do yoga, go help out your communities. You're okay. Yeah, and you're going to be okay. That. And if you have, you know, where you need to heal because you have different aches and pains, that's where you have, you know, the people out there like, you know, beings out there like me, and where we give a lot of information on how to detox and how to heal, because I put out a lot of free knowledge out there. And everything's okay. I think that's like, people need to tell everything's themselves that everything's okay, everything's going to be okay. It's okay. It's okay. Just, you know, stop listening to the news and go frolic in the forest. It's way better. Go sit in the forest and listen to the trees, because that'll recalibrate your nervous system, while the news is just like going to fry it out. And that's some of the best advice I can give people. And yeah, you'll get through that forest. You'll be okay. Do your work and you'll be okay.
Sarah, you've given so many solutions on this podcast in the 56 minutes we've been talking so far, and I really appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. I could literally talk to you for hours, like I said off camera before. I've got a million things I want to talk to you about. I really appreciate your time. Just to you've closed this podcast off with the perfect thing, really. It's about remembrance, isn't it? It's about realizing who you truly are. Tell people, you said you're doing a new TV show. You're going mainstream with this TV show. Is there anything else? How do people contact you? And I should have really have introduced you properly, but I'll make sure everything is in the notes. You know that you are a healer. You're multidimensional. You've got so many incredible talents that, you know, we've all got, but we haven't remembered how to use them. It's great that you can remember. But how do people get in touch with you?
They can visit my website at www.sararadams.com. I also have social media pages on Instagram, also Facebook, that they can contact me on. It might take a couple of days for us to get back to you. I do get a lot of messages. Yeah, I think I'm more of a facilitator. Maybe I need to change that. I don't like the word coach. I just facilitate people seeing that they are powerful divine beings and that they can heal anything, and they also have supernatural and spiritual abilities. So that's what I do. And I love doing this work. I love doing it. And I do leave a lot of knowledge on my Facebook pages on how to detox, how to heal, even specific mantras to do to just recode your system, rewire your system. So yeah, go ahead and check out my pages. The show that I'm doing, honestly, it's not, you know, I think people, I don't like the whole pedestal thing. So it's going to be a lot of my friends too on the show. And we just want to show people, honestly, like our everyday lives of how they can incorporate healing and doing these things that have helped us through our journeys, helped us to heal our bodies, helped us to overcome trauma, helped us to go into a state of remembrance, helped us to connect to the otherworldly beings and the host of the realms. And so it's going to be more of a reality show, you know, a show where it's going to really reflect that everyone can incorporate the things that we're doing into their everyday lives. They don't need to put a million feathers on and go sit in Peru somewhere, or go do hours and hours of breath work, or go, you know, because a lot of that stuff is just like, it's fun, but it's not true healing. They just really need to get control of their energy field. They need to learn how to organ whisper, which is talk to their organs, and then detox their body. Those things really, really change your life and really create a happy, healthy being. And those are the modalities that, you know, because I spent over $1 million back in the day when I was trying to heal myself from dying. I didn't find anything that would help. Surely Reiki didn't heal me. Healing sound bowls didn't heal me. Breath work didn't heal me. None of that did. Detoxing my body of heavy metals and parasites and doing energy work, organ whispering, and then also asking the host of the realms to help me while doing my own work is what healed me and what has brought me to where I am right now. Like, you know, and I'm truly happy. I'm truly good. I'm truly well within myself. And so those modalities will be reflected on that show. And I'm very happy because I feel like that's going to reach millions of people and get that knowledge out there. And then people can be like, hey, even though I have, you know, 9-to-5 job, I still can, you know, tune into the divine. I still can do these things at home that will heal myself or make myself feel better, and help heal my depression. That's what because I feel like the new age community is so out there with all the feathers and all of the like, oh, you need to spend so much money to be in like Peru or something. Hey, it's great to do a retreat once in a great while, but you don't need to do that to access the divine. And there's a lot of people who have families out there who can't can't go to Peru and spend all this money, who can't do those things. So I also have put together a group with my lovely friend Althea, and where we're teaching all of these things too, where you can just learn how to incorporate them into your everyday life. So I'm excited about that too. And a lot of this work was to honestly really to get out of like that whole thing of people need to go and live in some new age like town or go there and be like, hey, this is for you in your everyday life. Okay. Yes. Going to work, you can incorporate these things and it's going to better your life on every single level. So that's kind of like also why I'm doing such a big mainstream show, was just for that, to like get that knowledge out there too.
I think that's so important. Reaching the mainstream is going to be so important. To allow people to recognize that the power's within, the kingdom's within, you've got it all. It can be a tough journey, but it's kind of
worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very grateful, obviously, that you managed to heal yourself and you're here talking to me today. I'm very honored that you're here talking with me today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be speaking to you too.
It's been a fabulous conversation. I hope I can do that again with you sometime. Like I say, I've got many questions there that I've not gotten here. But Sarah, I really appreciate you. I appreciate your journey. I'd recommend to anybody to look at some interviews from the past with Sarah, go through those interviews, learn more about where Sarah's come from, because that in itself is an incredible story, something that we certainly can't fit in this podcast. So please do your research on Sarah and then watch this again. Because when you've watched some interviews and you re-watched the podcast and what Sarah's talked about today, it's going to resonate a lot more with you. So thank you. I'm very honored. Thank you, Sarah.